Choi Kanghyuk, a renowned fitness influencer known as BESTGYMRATTY, faces a crisis. Between the lockdowns thanks to the COVID pandemic, crippling his gyms and the financial stress causing hair loss, his once perfect world seems to crumble. Seeking solace, Choy dives into one of his favorite childhood hobbies, reading Murim novels. But as the fitness pro scrolls his phone and finds the novel from his favorite childhood author titled Shaolin Monk Chronicles, he cannot help but binge-read it till he drops asleep. He, however, soon wakes up from his slumber to discover a shocking reality. Gone are his rippling muscles and internet fame. Instead, he finds himself in an unknown room, his head shaved clean, and a tiny, impatient monk barking orders about morning training. Is this a bizarre dream or a terrifying new reality? Has the world of the novel somehow become his own? Join Choy, now known as Mu Jin, on a journey of confusion, adaptation, and perhaps unexpected adventure in the heart of a Shaolin monastery. The evening sun casts its light on a colossal fitness center in Gangnam, Seoul, South Korea, its rays illuminating the multiple levels of the building, each adorned with mirror panels that reflect the golden glow. This scene creates a striking visual display, making the entire structure gleam with the sun's final light of the day. From a small office room within the fitness center, the sound of a loud voice echoes. Inside, a massively built bodybuilder, Choi Kanghyuk, is seen with his left arm raised, holding a camera. He captures his impressive physique and muscles on video, creating content for his channel, BESTGYMRATTY. He directs the camera toward a box of glistening fried food and cans of drinks, sharing that he will be doing a mukbang at the request of his fans. He mentions that the food of the day includes the trendy honey chicken and beer. With a beer in his right hand and a drumstick in his left, he takes a hearty bite of the chicken, filling his cheeks with food. With a surprised expression as he digs in, Choy expresses pure pleasure, remarking on the deliciousness of the food and exhaling with happiness after a big sip of beer. His flexed muscles, displaying their sheer size and definition, reflect his dedication to working out. This muscular man enjoying his beer was not always a gym rat. There is a significant story behind it. There was a time when he was so gravely injured that he faced the prospect of never walking again, unless he worked on his muscles. During his tenure as a special forces agent, he sustained injuries severe enough that he had to be carried away on a stretcher by fellow agents. From that fateful day onward, he committed himself to rigorous physical therapy and frequent visits to a chiropractor to aid his recovery. Following his injury, Choy explored every avenue of health and fitness, from yoga to Pilates, ensuring no healthy food was left out of his diet, whether it be dairy products, fruits, or vegetables. He even delved into studying nutrition to optimize his diet. This relentless dedication transformed him into the nation's most renowned gym rat, earning him a reputation as the best specialist in rehabilitation training. The most renowned fitness trainer in all of South Korea, Choi Kanghyuk, holds both an education in physical therapy and licenses to practice as a physical therapist and rehabilitation masseur. Known famously by his online moniker BESTGYMRATTY Choi Kanghyuk, his expertise is unparalleled. This background leads one to question why this fitness master would partake in a mukbang, an activity notorious for its potential to undermine physical health. Choy, reflecting on his actions, regrets that indulging in such food is detrimental to his muscles, despite the delicious taste. However, he finds himself compelled to do this due to the impact of COVID-19. The global pandemic has forced even this dedicated fitness guru to compromise his body with food to ensure his gyms remain operational and his bills are paid. Reading the bills sends a shock through Choy, causing him to quiver, leaving him with no choice but to start streaming. Despite the financial benefits of this venture, he still struggles to generate enough income to sustain his 5 gyms. Meanwhile, comments from viewers about his potential muscle loss often bring him to the verge of tears, which he tries to dismiss by claiming there's something in his eye. With a charismatic glint, he ends the stream with a thumbs up, urging his audience to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to be notified whenever he goes live. Once the stream is off, Choy's expression turns grim as he contemplates the impact of tomorrow's stream on his body. He gazes at the empty boxes of chicken and sauce alongside the beer cans, knowing they are loaded with calories and that the alcohol will hinder his training efforts to burn it off. Frustrated, the bodybuilder looks down and sighs, wondering how things have deteriorated to this point. He decides to take the rest his doctor advised despite his inner turmoil. A flashback of his last doctor's visit crosses his mind. The doctor had mentioned that his hair loss was stress-induced, a revelation that made Choy's eyes widen in shock. He had asked the doctor to repeat it, stunned by the news. The doctor explained that it was due to Choi's excellent health, that the effects of stress are only now beginning to take a toll on his athletic body. As they sit face to face, the doctor advises Choi to reduce his work hours, warning him of the potential consequences. When Choi asks what those might be, the doctor, with a serious expression, points to his head and delivers the devastating news: baldness. Choi's jaw drops and his face freezes in terror, the thought of having a smooth, round, bald head. He laments the idea that losing his hair would lead to a loss of popularity. He imagines girls not wanting to date him, becoming a subject of ridicule, and being alone forever. In his memories, the doctor's last words linger, emphasizing that while he could prescribe stress medication, the most crucial aspect of managing stress is getting adequate rest. Choi leans his massive back against the window, sitting on the floor amidst dumbbells and other fitness equipment. With a hand on his forehead, he contemplates his next move, but his mind draws a blank as he stares at the ceiling, realizing that all he knows is work and exercise. Lost in thought, he reaches for his phone, attempting to find something, but nothing seems to fit his needs. As he scrolls through his phone, memories of his childhood come flooding back. He remembers the time he used to enjoy reading Murim novels before his life became so hectic. Raised by his grandparents, the energetic young boy would borrow Murim novels from the corner bookstore. Those moments spent reading were among his most cherished memories. He reminisces about his grandpa's lectures, urging him not to visit the bookstore so often. As he scrolls through various novels on his phone, a familiar name catches his eye: Gagyeong. Memories of his childhood favorites, Absolute Demon's Return and Unorthodox Faction's Tyranny, flood back. Intrigued, Choi notices a new Murim novel by Gagyeong, titled Shaolin Monk Chronicles. Curiosity piqued, he taps on the novel and decides to read a bit of the first chapter. As he delves into the story, he becomes increasingly engrossed, realizing that the series is fantastic. The joy he feels while reading is a welcome relief, lifting his spirits and making him feel elated. Compared to the time he has spent working in his gyms, training customers, and streaming online, it has been a truly long time. Since Choi felt so relaxed, almost as if he had returned to his childhood days of reading novel after novel. Immersed in the story, the man with the bulky frame feels a wave of drowsiness overcome him, eventually causing him to fall asleep right on his face on the gym floor. As night descends, a bright light from Choi's phone casts a glow across the room. Gradually, a faint voice calls out, growing louder and louder, urgently beckoning someone named Mu Jin to wake up. Suddenly, Choi's peaceful slumber is shattered by a commanding shout, demanding Mu Jin to rise for morning exercise. Startled awake, Choi springs to his knees and shouts in confusion about a morning workout, only to find himself facing an unfamiliar figure dressed in yellow. Gathering his wits, Choi gazes at the bald, young monk standing before him with confusion. The monk impatiently informs Choi that they are running late for morning training and will be scolded for being the last ones there, since everyone else has already left. Annoyed, Choi questions how the kid managed to enter his house, and wonders about his identity and the reason behind his shaved head. Upon hearing Choi refer to him as a kid, the boy awkwardly responds that he is actually older and larger than Choi. Standing at 180 centimeters tall, the bodybuilder with a body fat percentage of 8 to 10% and a massive frame stands up, placing his hands on the boy's shoulders, asking if his eyes are playing tricks on him. As he surveys his surroundings, from the ceiling to the floor and the furniture, Choi suddenly realizes something alarming. He finds himself in an unfamiliar room, dressed as a little bald monk in yellow robes. The ground trembles beneath him as he grapples with this new reality, panic rising within him. He questions what has happened to his hair, where he is, and why he is in such an old-fashioned setting. His gaze shifts to the boy who woke him, realizing that the boy had called him Mu Jin. As he tries to recall where he heard this, an image of the Shaolin Monk Chronicles flashes in his mind, triggering the realization that Mu Jin is the protagonist of that Murim novel. He furrows his brow at his slender frame, devoid of muscles, pondering why he is transformed into Mu Jin after dozing off while reading the novel. With a spark of insight in his eyes, he exhales a sigh of relief, acknowledging that he must be dreaming, a habit from his childhood. However, his thoughts are interrupted by a nearby voice, expressing confusion over his mutterings. The boy adjusts his robe's belt and reminds Choi once more that they are running late. Choi nods in agreement, admiring the boy's innocence and charm. As the boy starts to depart, urging Mu Jin, formerly Choi, to hurry. Mu Jin follows closely behind, opting to embrace the surreal situation with a sense of adventure. Upon reaching their destination, a stern and deeply furrowed face, exuding toughness and anger, bellows at those arriving late to the inaugural lesson, emphasizing the importance of learning punctuality. The boys face the back of a towering figure, presumably the master, standing imposingly before a group of young monks. The boy accompanying Mu Jin apologizes loudly, while the fitness master remains absorbed in the vividness of the dream. The master commands his students to assume the horse stance. Mu Jin wonders if it's similar to a squat, but his attention shifts to the students immediately flexing their knees, trembling and grunting in pain. Mu Jin breaks into a cold sweat, concerned that the rigorous stance might be damaging their knee joints. Mu Jin reflects on his own training days, noticing the flaws in the monk trainees' technique. He finds their stance absurd, observing their wide-legged posture and the lack of straight backs, especially evident in the boy monks struggling in front of him. He privately laments that this display goes against proper gym ethics that emphasize correct form. Meanwhile, the master monk emphasizes the importance of a strong lower body as the foundation for martial arts. However, the fitness master inwardly protests an annoyance, wondering how someone supposedly so knowledgeable could subject their trainees to such a flawed exercise. The master moves among the trainees, all maintaining their positions, stressing that without a stable lower body, they cannot execute punching and staff techniques with full force. Mu Jin's expression darkens as he listens to the master monk's instructions to students who lack proper posture. He despairs at the thought of a trainer who would allow training to proceed without correcting such fundamental errors. Gritting his teeth, he gathers the courage to speak out, even though he knows it's only a dream. His mouth hangs open as he shouts at the top of his lungs, declaring that those ignorant individuals know nothing about proper exercise techniques. The master monk and the other senior disciples are stunned at the boy's rude behavior, followed by all the young trainees who turn their heads in shock, one by one. Meanwhile, our young bald fitness enthusiast breathes heavily with anger, while his companion anxiously asks what's wrong. Suddenly, in a burst of fury, the master monk angrily rebukes Mu Jin for disrupting the training session with his outburst. Some second-class seniors join in, reprimanding the young boy for his perceived disrespect towards Shaolin's discipline, attributing it to his difficulty with the exercise and ordering him to take his position immediately. Mu Jin, still convinced he's in a dream, is surprised by the authority in their voices, yet he senses the energy in their shouts, reminding himself that he's immersed in a martial arts novel. Despite his disbelief, Mu Jin stands firm in his belief, bolstered by his knowledge and conviction. He calmly reiterates to the monks that he simply pointed out an error and resolves not to retreat. His determination is fueled by memories of dealing with misguided clients, particularly one fixated on impractical fitness goals he'd seen online, prompting Choy to redirect him towards practical exercise advice instead. Mu Jin finds these individuals easier to handle than his usual clients. Suddenly, the master monk appears directly in front of him and questions his stance on Shaolin training, despite being a disciple himself. Initially considering it a dream, Mu Jin acknowledges the reality with a grin and proceeds to engage in conversation like a seasoned martial artist. Drawing on his knowledge of physical therapy, he explains how such rigorous training could lead to long-term joint damage, particularly affecting the knees later in life. The master monk, visibly irritated, dismisses this as a feeble excuse, prompting Mu Jin to apologize, perplexed by the response. He counters with the principle that martial arts is intended to be a way for the weak to strengthen their bodies and minds, yet the monk's assertion seems to contradict this, by implying that only the weak are unable to undertake this training. A second-class senior restrains the enraged master monk in front of Mu Jin, explaining that Shaolin's training differs from what the boy assumes and serves as a means for them to attain enlightenment through self-improvement. The bald boy, feeling triumphant in the argument, adopts a smug expression and innocently inquires if they are suggesting that the weak cannot achieve enlightenment. Provoked by the boy's question, the master monk becomes even more infuriated, vehemently insisting that he is correct and that rigorous physical training is essential for mental training. He attempts to elaborate, explaining that the weak human mind tends to seek comfort during difficult times, making it susceptible to evil thoughts. However, by training their minds to be strong early on, they can better withstand future challenges. With another smirk, Mu Jin counters that the monks seem to suggest mind training is only necessary for the young, which causes the monks to question his reasoning. Mu Jin, now brimming with confidence, repeats his assertion, leaving the master monk speechless. Speaking as the knowledgeable Choi Kanghyuk, he reiterates the contradiction in the monk's approach. They are training the boys in such a way that it requires them to harm their knees, to strengthen their minds when they are young, implying they will not need to train their minds when their old bodies are damaged. He concludes his argument by posing an innocent question: if they train and suffer as children, are they guaranteed to reach enlightenment later on or not? This prompts the young monk trainees to begin whispering amongst themselves and questioning their Shaolin training, which is thousands of years old, making the master monk nervous as his authority is challenged by a young boy. To further astonish everyone, Mu Jin pompously points with his little left hand at the senior-most monk in the special yellow robes and expresses his disappointment at how much the poor old monk has suffered without achieving enlightenment. This proclamation causes everyone to go pale with fear at his blasphemous words. The master monk's jaw is left wide open at how a supposedly ignorant boy keeps making blasphemous claims and does not back down, still pointing at the monk in yellow, the first-class disciple He Jung. He Jung, with an expression solid as a rock, takes a deep breath in and suddenly shouts with immense ferocity that shakes all the monks. The powerful sound waves from his shout cause all the monks to clutch their ears in pain. Mu Jin's small body also trembles as he feels the pressure of first-class disciple. With a commanding presence, He Jung stands with his hands tied behind his back and walks toward the audacious boy, informing him that his words have been heard clearly. He reiterates, as the second-class disciples have said, that Buddhist martial arts training is merely a tool for achieving enlightenment through self-discipline. However, standing face-to-face with the little boy, he emphasizes that their approach to martial arts is different, prompting the boy to inquire how so. He reiterates that their martial arts are meant to serve as a means to train the disciples to combat evil demons and protect the masses. Mu Jin, with his self-righteous air, remarks that He Jung seems to suggest that the disciples must harm their knees to safeguard the masses. The first-class disciple looks down on the boy, judging him to be a negative influence on the surrounding disciples, if left unchecked. Since a senior in the Buddhist group cannot punish a young monk directly, he devises a creative method to discipline the little troublemaker. He Jung raises his finger and tells Mu Jin that if he truly believes that Shaolin's training is flawed, he must prove himself in a duel. This leads Mu Jin to question how he is supposed to prove himself. He Jung calmly tells him that since Mu Jin believes his training method is correct, he must prove it by defeating one of the young monks trained by the Shaolin training methods. With a terrified expression, Mu Jin is taken aback and asks if he will be tasked with defeating the first-class disciple in yellow robes, He Jung. He Jung, grasping the situation, insists it would only be fair if the opponent is someone who joined at the same time as Mu Jin. He nominates Mu Gung, the big child who steps forward with confidence. The first-class disciple elaborates that Mu Jin will have a chance to validate his methods if he trains according to his supposedly correct techniques for 7 days, and then wins a sparring match against Mu Gung, who aggressively clasps his fists and bows with pride. Mu Jin is worried by the announcement, noting that Mu Gung is in a higher weight class than himself, yet the first-class disciple considers it fair. Annoyed, he glares at the yellow-robed monk, suspecting that the man simply wants to undermine Mu Jin and his ideas by deeming it fair to crush him by pinning him against a stronger opponent, solely because they joined at the same time. As Mu Gung towers over him, Mu Jin realizes that, in his view, He Jung is truly a harsh senior. With a self-righteous smile, the first-class disciple thinks to himself that he has created an impossible scenario and surely he has won. But to his dismay, a little voice of agreement is heard, with flaring golden eyes and a wide grin on the face of the little boy with his fist clenched. Mu Jin agrees to the challenge, confidently thinking that he would not lose to a brat. Soon everyone begins to whisper about the unbelievable situation. Mu Gung looks down with a frown. He Jung's face wrinkles with anger, and he simply turns around saying that Mu Jin has chosen the difficult route. The first-class disciple shouts an order to everyone, telling them to return to their training. All the young monks bow in respect to him. As the yellow-robed disciple walks away, Mu Jin's partner from the start, Mu Yul, asks him once again the reason for doing this, and advises him to apologize to He Jung. However, the shy boy is immediately interrupted by a voice telling him to get back to his position. Everyone looks at the little Mu Jin with angry and contemptful faces, whispering about his impudence and ego, while He Jung simply walks away, looking forward to the duel in 7 days. Mu Jin is seen with clasped hands, sweating profusely as he performs his squats in perfect form, while the monks around him struggle to hold their horse stances. The master monk shouts his name and questions why he is doing his exercises amidst everyone else's training. Without stopping his squats, Mu Jin responds in a self-satisfied manner, claiming he has permission from monk He Jung who outranks the second-class disciple. The master monk is on the verge of bursting with anger, but stops as the first-class disciple in yellow intervenes, reminding him that the promise must be upheld, causing the second-class disciple to understand. As he continues his squats, Mu Jin grins and frightens the young monks, telling them from behind that they shouldn't follow the training if they want to keep their knees functional. Adding even more to the straining young monks' fears, Mu Jin warns them that, being young and gullible, no one will take responsibility once their knees have been damaged. He continues to enjoy teasing them about the unnecessary pain of their training and how their knee cartilage is being destroyed, while the senior monk vehemently tries to focus on his mantra, pretending Mu Jin is not there. After 2 hours of morning training, Mu Yul reminds Mu Jin that it's time for breakfast, and they leave the training grounds together. It is in the food hall that Mu Jin confronts his greatest obstacle yet, the meal laid out before him. He stares at the table where a bowl of rice, chopsticks, and vegetables await, realizing that Buddhists primarily follow a vegetarian diet, a revelation he hadn't anticipated, despite its norm within the temple. As everyone stands to give thanks for the food, Mu Jin wonders how he'll get his protein. He contemplates the meal in front of him, expecting it to be unpleasant. To his surprise, he can smell the food vividly, even though he's sure he's dreaming. As he sits down and takes in the aroma, he finds this simple fare of vegetables and rice unexpectedly appetizing. But reality strikes him down as he realizes that there is no point in good-smelling food if it is just vegetables. He begins to shake with frustration before suddenly bursting in anger as he slams the table with his fists and shouts out loud that feeding only this much is child abuse. The second-class monk orders him to stop speaking during mealtime, but Mu Jin angrily retorts that the monks spent all morning training, and that it is too harsh to simply give the vegetables. Two senior monks stand up in anger and tell him to cease his speech and stop being disrespectful, leading to one of them finally hitting his limit and approaching Mu Jin, intending to punish him for his impudent attitude. Meanwhile, the little boy wonders why the senior monk is getting angry after serving such a lousy meal. Our fitness master makes a frustrated face, thinking that if the young monks train so much, they'd also need protein, and steals his resolve not to let this transgression pass by. As Mu Jin is thinking this, a pompous man in gray robes approaches him from behind while laughing. The senior monk's eyes are caught by the person. The previously enraged second-class monk is surprised as he shouts the name of the man in gray robes, Hiyunmun, the food hall leader, the fat man responsible for all the meals in Shaolin Temple. The chunky man walks in saying that he was merely passing by, and looks with his peaceful gaze at Mu Jin, who seems to be quite hungry. Hiyunmun amiably tells Mu Jin that he may simply ask for more food if it is not enough for him, but the boy immediately answers that the food is enough. The kind food hall leader asks if the boy wishes for more of the side dish, thinking that the child is moody due to hunger, so he overlooks the bad manners with kindness. With a serious expression directed at Hiyunmun, Mu Jin inquires about the availability of any sources of protein, specifically chicken breasts, a question that leaves the monks astonished and his friend Mu Yul bewildered. The hall leader reacts with a frighteningly stern look, causing everyone in the room to go pale at the absurdity of Mu Jin's question. Mu Yul questions again, wondering if Mu Jin's strange statements are a result of some mental issues. Despite this, Mu Jin remains determined and, in a moment of frustration, insists that the young monks absolutely must consume protein. His agitation subsides when Mu Yul gently grabs his arm, his innocent face filled with concern. Mu Jin then glimpses at his reflection in Mu Yul's emerald eyes, recalling how he has lost all of his once muscular and fit physique. Mu Jin finds his current situation peculiar as he delves deeper into his thoughts, recalling how exercise now leaves him exhausted, how he can distinctly smell the food, and how the fear grips him, that if this were a dream, he should have woken up by now. The realization that this might be his reality dawns on him, and he understands the need to improve his circumstances. Accepting that he is now a young monk in a Shaolin temple, Mu Jin decides he must address his previous mistake appropriately. Bowing respectfully, he attributes his earlier disrespectful attitude to hunger, which helps calm the food hall leader. Mu Jin then reluctantly requests beans and mushrooms as side dishes, causing Hiyunmun to stare in disbelief and conclude that the young boy must be out of his mind. Regardless of whether his experience is a dream or reality, Mu Jin understands that he must find a way to obtain his protein. While living in the Shaolin temple, he along with the other young monks are now gathered in a classroom, diligently learning Buddhist scriptures, while Mu Jin, feeling bored, rests his head on his hand and balances a brush between his nose and upper lip, reflecting on the incredibly strict schedule Mu Jin thinks even the Buddha would find it intolerable. As the teacher recites the scriptures, he contemplates his strategy for escaping, assuming he is indeed in the world of a novel. However, the brush falls from his lip as a sudden realization strikes him. Perhaps completing the story is the key to leaving this world. Mu Jin realizes that his current situation may not actually be as bad as he thinks. As the hero of the story, he possesses great talent, and the Shaolin Temple is the most powerful in the Orthodox Alliance. He imagines the temple's majestic location atop Mount Tai's North Star. However, he fails to notice the ink from the fallen brush now not under his nose, spreading its ink across his scripture manual. Very soon he becomes aware that his clumsiness has marked him in everyone's minds while the whole class turns to look at him. With a forced grin, Mu Jin resolves to make the most of his situation by proving that his methods are superior. Later, Haejung, a first-class monk in yellow robes, is seen apologizing to the food hall leader Hyun Mun on behalf of the young monk. The overweight man refers to Mu Jin as a unique child, acknowledging his peculiar behavior. The large food hall leader inquires about Haejung's opinion of Mu Jin, to which the senior monk replies that the upcoming sparring match with Mu Gung in 7 days will determine his worth. Hyun Mun laughs heartily as they walk together, praising Haejung for cleverly finding a suitable solution, given that Buddhist disciples are not permitted to punish young monks. Grinning, the hefty man remarks on how Mu Gung is the most promising disciple among the current year's young monks. It is well known that many new disciples recruited annually to the Shaolin Temple drop out, unable to endure the rigorous training regime, or they might learn basic martial arts before leaving for an outer sect. In the end, a mere 10% of recruits end up staying at the main temple. This is the reason why the names of new monks are not memorized by first-class disciples or senior monks. Mu Gung, however, is an exception, as the boy possesses a gigantic frame, far exceeding all the other recruits. Hyun Mun insidiously thinks about how the behemoth will destroy Mu Jin in the spar. Not so far in the future, the two young monks approach each other to position themselves for the duel, which is taking place after the promised 7 days. Standing like a tower, on the left is the fierce and strongest recruit of the year, Mu Gung. On the right stands a confident little monk with the memories of the fitness master, Choi Kanghyuk. A senior monk stands between them as the referee shouts, marking the beginning of the duel. The scene shifts to the recent past, showing Mu Jin just before the battle. As he stretches his legs, Mu Yul curiously asks him about the purpose of stretching. Mu Jin explains it in martial arts terms, calling it tendon extension, a technique that prepares the muscles and tendons before activity. This method prevents a stiff body from going into shock and enhances muscle flexibility and joint range of motion. Mu Jin even encourages Mu Yul to try it out himself. The other monks whisper among themselves with jealousy and disdain. But Mu Jin maintains a positive attitude and praises his friend when Mu Yul shyly asks if he is doing it correctly. Impressed by Mu Yul's quick grasp of the technique, Mu Jin commends his friend's ability to learn swiftly. However, the two's attention is immediately grabbed by the voices, impressed at the punches of another young monk. Mu Gung is seen practicing consecutive punches with power, appropriate to his hulking frame. The other young monks fawn over the talent's powerful punches that can almost generate a snap in the air due to their sheer speed. Mu Yul stares with admiration at the powerful fists being thrown, while Mu Jin is stiff, thinking what would happen if he were hit by one. He wonders how he could possibly beat such a behemoth with merely 1 week of training. As he looks at the ferocious young monk throwing his massive fists, Mu Jin begins planning possible ways to beat him when the idea of a genius technique suddenly pops into his head. The scene shifts back to the present, where the two young monks stand face to face. Haejung glances at Mu Jin, surprised that the troublemaker is not causing a fuss to avoid Shaolin training. He recalls watching Mu Jin use his own training methods throughout the week, including one that appeared as if he were leaning on a tree. In Haejung's memory, Mu Yul had asked what Mu Jin was doing, to which Mu Jin responded that he was practicing a technique to take down Mu Gung in 1 move. Mu Yul had almost comically inquired why he was rubbing against the tree. Now, in the present, Haejung looks towards Mu Gung, clearing his throat as he confidently believes that Mu Gung will swiftly subdue Mu Jin and teach him a lesson. Mu Gung smiles gleefully, blushing with pride that the first-class disciple Haejung is watching him, and steals his resolve to crush Mu Jin's dreams in order to climb the ranks. However, his thoughts are interrupted by Mu Jin grunting and making various movements, completely ignoring the tense atmosphere. After stretching his back, Mu Jin asks if the duel can start as soon as possible. Both Haejung and Mu Gung look with disdain, at the frail-looking boy acting completely self-confident. As he is commanded to step forward, Mu Gung steps forward menacingly and prepares himself to defeat Mu Jin. As the little monk looks at Mu Gung, he envisions how he will unleash his consecutive punches that have been practiced for 3 whole months. And so, the referee shouts, signaling the start of the duel. Destroying everyone's expectations, as soon as he hears the referee, he charges straight toward Mu Gung, catching him off guard. While his gigantic frame is taken aback by this action, Mu Jin closes the distance between the two, making Mu Gung retreat in confusion. He counters by throwing a punch squarely at Mu Jin's face, which is swiftly dodged by a duck from the thin frame, leaving only an afterimage. Mu Gung stares in frustration at the tiny frame that dodges his punch, shocking all the young monks and He Jung. Immediately following the dodge, Mu Jin tackles the giant's right leg with all his might. Mu Jin recalls memories from his past, realizing that the modern martial arts techniques he mastered as Choi Kanghyuk are too powerful to be used on a child. These techniques could be fatal, if not controlled, so he decides to use methods suitable for a situation where even a frail-looking child such as Mu Jin could withstand them. Returning to the present, Mu Jin reveals his first technique, performing a tackle that lifts Mu Gung off the ground. The larger boy falls to the ground with a painful groan. In a stunning display, Mu Jin wraps his tiny hands around the greatest talent among the Shaolin recruits, and within a single second, he incapacitates Mu Gung with an armbar lock. Both young monks lie on the ground, Mu Gung screaming in pain from Mu Jin's powerful lock. Senior monks express outrage at Mu Gung's falsely perceived weak willpower, insisting that a Shaolin disciple should endure such challenges without any effort, urging him to simply break free from the hold. Among the young monks, some cheer for Mu Gung, screaming his name in disbelief, while others are shocked to witness Mu Gung, previously considered unbeatable, succumb so easily and display such vulnerability. Meanwhile, Mu Gung himself is bewildered, questioning how Mu Jin could have subdued him in such a manner. The previously enraged second-class disciples are now giving him worthless ideas to get out of the armbar after regaining their composure, but soon they realize, despite not knowing what an armbar is in their more than 10 years of training, that it is a truly horrific and painful position to be stuck in. Mu Gung continues to scream in agony when he hears Mu Jin call out to him. He turns his head towards him, only to hear the most horrific words. Mu Jin threatens him that if Mu Gung resists further, his arm will be broken, so he should surrender. A horrendous creaking noise follows. The second-class disciples keep spouting unhelpful pep talk as another terrible creak is heard by the giant young monk. As Mu Gung holds onto his pride, Mu Jin warns again while applying more pressure that Mu Gung can probably feel that the bones of his right arm will be dislocated, possibly leading him to be crippled for life. Another tooth-chattering creak is heard. Mu Gung's eyes are bursting out of their sockets, and his teeth are clenched tightly as he profusely sweats, enduring the pain. The previously unbeatable behemoth is now hearing 2 voices motivating him, one of the senior disciples telling him to get out of the lock, and the other of Mu Jin telling him to give up. Mu Gung's bones creak once again, this time even longer, as he is at the peak of his patience, hearing everyone cheer his name. Suddenly, he gives out a harrowing cry of pain as the shoulder is subluxed. The scream leaves Mu Jin and all the monks spectating, paralyzed and at a loss for words. Mu Jin immediately releases the lock and apologizes for being too harsh, as the trembling Mu Gung remains lying still on the floor. Out of pity, the second-class disciples look to He Jung for a decision on what to do next. Reluctantly, as He Jung looks at Mu Jin, who is holding the weeping Mu Gung's shoulder in place, he declares Mu Jin the victor. A leather-bound book titled Chain Punch describes it as an advanced fist technique, utilizing the elbow and shoulder ideal for swiftly defeating opponents at close range. Our protagonist recognizes it as a formidable technique, and despite Mu Gung's being a young monk, he has mastered the chain punch technique. The fitness master recalls an image of Mu Gung throwing powerful fists with a fierce expression, a display that would make even second-class disciples envious. However, as demonstrated today, Mu Jin decisively defeated the brilliant chain punch technique in a humiliating manner. Mu Jin aimed to end the encounter swiftly, leaving Mu Gung no opportunity to resist. In the end, the formidable young monk lost to a seemingly frail opponent who employed unorthodox techniques. Mu Gung's cries can be heard, as the boy's right arm is still shivering from the sheer pain he has been experiencing up till now. While Mu Jin holds his shoulder to support it, Mu Gung cries about how unfair the fight was, while wiping his left arm, making Mu Jin ask him how that is possible, considering the irony of their size difference. Mu Gung responds while continuing to cry in pain, and sniffling that Mu Jin charged at him immediately, and then used a technique other than the chain punch. Immediately after, Mu Jin is awkwardly pushed back as the giant child crying in front of him raises his head and screams that he can win against everyone if it is a fair fight. Mu Jin attempts to console him by telling him that he is correct, but he calls him Mu Gung Hwa as a tease. No matter how hard his shell is, he's still a crybaby on the inside. The scene unfolds with Mu Gung crying out in response to the nickname Mu Jin used, causing a stir among the second-class disciples, who silently observe them in the arena. Suddenly, a voice interrupts, clearing their throat and acknowledging Mu Gung's outcry. A senior monk steps forward, arguing that it's crucial for a Shaolin monk to employ Shaolin martial arts in a duel, accusing Mu Jin of breaking this tradition. Mu Jin gazes at the new voice with confusion, privately questioning the validity of such rigid beliefs. The monk with a stern demeanor questions Mu Jin, demanding to know why he didn't utilize the chain punch technique. Mu Jin calmly explains that he chose not to prolong the duel unnecessarily by using the chain punch, as it would risk injury to both participants. Instead, he opted to swiftly subdue his opponent, maintaining the integrity of the duel's purpose. Mu Jin pleads that his technique did take his opponent down without any physical injuries, although it did make him cry as they look at the weeping Mu Gung. But without lending an ear, the senior monk shouts at Mu Jin for not fighting Mu Gung with Shaolin martial arts, and turns his reasoning down, calling it nonsense. Fighting for his right as the victor, Mu Jin counters that the senior monk is the one spouting rubbish, making him baffled at the little boy's response. The senior monks look down in frustration as they think about how easily one of the major techniques in Shaolin martial arts, the chain punch, was defeated by an untrained little kid using unconventional methods. As the man clenches his fist in anger and resentment, he recognizes that Mu Gung lost fairly and that the monks are coping as they refuse to acknowledge the truth. He looks behind him at the young monks in the audience, thinking that the power of Shaolin martial arts might begin to be doubted by the young monks if they are countered with such ease. As Mu Jin observes the frightened young monks around him, a troubling thought crosses his mind. The possibility that new disciples might be discouraged from staying at the Shaolin temple if they perceive Shaolin martial arts as easily beatable. Senior monks are perplexed, hoping that first-class disciple He Jung can resolve the situation. Unexpectedly, the senior monk in yellow robes breaks into a smile, leaving everyone curious about his intentions. He addresses Mu Jin casually, prompting the young monk to respond affirmatively. With his intense presence, the senior monk stares at Mu Jin and asks a straightforward question: whether Mu Jin truly used the technique, intending to subdue Mu Gung without causing harm. Without hesitation, Mu Jin immediately answers with a yes. Hearing this, He Jung announces with an uncharacteristic smile on his mature face that Mu Jin has adhered to the true essence of Shaolin, and thus has won the duel. This shocks all the monks from the second-class disciples to the young recruits, even making Mu Jin suspicious over the fact that the old man is actually recognizing his technique. However, He Jung interrupts everyone's surprise with another statement. He claims that Mu Jin's technique was only more effective than the chain punch because his opponent is a mere loser, making Mu Gung bite his nails in shock from the painful words, saying that He Jung proclaims that the true essence of martial arts is to serve as a tool to defeat evil and demonic heads who have learned martial arts. He announces aloud in the Shaolin temple that he shall demonstrate what true Shaolin martial arts are. He raises his sleeves to reveal his sharply defined forearm that seems harder than a rock, and announces that he is now going to use the original power of Shaolin, meant to take down evil demonic heads. He Jung instructs two of his disciples to fetch a boulder. Everyone witnesses two senior monks bring forth a massive stone, nearly as tall as themselves, and release it onto the pristine white tiles of the arena. Among the young monks, Mu Jin is notably taken aback by the prospect of witnessing He Jung's martial prowess firsthand, as he prepares to witness the master's ability to pulverize the boulder using only his fists. Positioned beside the imposing boulder, the first-class disciple urges everyone to closely observe the sheer power of He Jung's chain punch technique. Beneath the expansive blue sky, clad in yellow robes, He Jung places his robust hands on the surface of the stone. With a single controlled exhale, he swiftly draws back his fist. Cutting through the air with precision, his fist executes a perfect chain punch, striking the boulder dead center in a mesmerizing display of skill and power. The impact reverberates through the air, accompanied by a resounding boom, as He Jung's robust hand, with veins bulging almost to bursting, meets the boulder's surface. In an instant, the stone crumbles, leaving behind only a cavity where his hand had been, with shards falling down making a pile on the arena floor. Enthralled by the spectacle, the young monks erupt in enthusiastic cheers, awed by the incredible display of power they have just witnessed. They marvel at the colossal boulder, larger than a human, shattered by a single punch. Inspired by the possibility that with dedicated training, they too could achieve such mastery. Jung, his face breaking into a grin, cast a satisfied glance at Mu Jin, who was astonished to the point of leaving his mouth agape at the awe-inspiring demonstration. With nothing but pure respect and admiration, Mu Jin's face flushes with excitement as his teeth shine from the wide grin on his face, glad that he just got to witness a true martial arts technique. He envisions that this is how martial arts should be, strong enough to cause a crate in a mountain with a single impact, or how a single sword swing can eliminate a multitude of enemies. He imagines how a single punch can explode enemies, which brings his mind to an awkward realization. He asks Jung a question, as he raises his hand, making the proud monk turn his head. Mu Jin asks if martial arts are supposed to be used to overpower an enemy without harming them, making the aged monk promptly agree. Mu Jin follows up by pointing to the remains of the giant rock with a frown on his face, saying that the same martial arts are capable of shattering a massive boulder. As Jung looks down at the fragments, everyone goes silent at the eerie contradiction. Thus, the day ends with everyone in the training hall maintaining silence about the event. The next morning at the brilliant jade-themed Shaolin Temple under the bright sunny sky, a conversation takes place between the hall leader of education, Sung, and first-class disciple Jung. The hall leader discusses how Mu Jin defeated Mu Gong with just one move, while he strokes his chin in wonder, surprised by the unbelievable truth he has just heard. Sitting across from his master, Jung confirms that Mu Jin is indeed extraordinary. He mentions that Mu Jin can be a bit arrogant, but he's been training harder than anyone else, especially in developing the chain punch technique. However, the concern on the master's face remains unspoken, but clear. Sung speculates that Mu Jin might be practicing the chain punch to uncover its weaknesses. Jung nods in agreement, his expression troubled as he looks down. In a brief moment of silence, the first-class disciple shares his concern that Mu Jin could be a spy for the unorthodox alliance or even something more sinister like a member of a demonic cult. Meanwhile, Mu Jin sits bewildered in scripture class, struggling to make sense of the strange aji-baji words being taught. Senior monks elsewhere discuss Mu Jin's future should he indeed be a spy. However, before Jung further delves into his theory, the hall leader of education, Sung, interrupts his thoughts to comment that it does not make sense for a spy to be so flashy and garner attention from everyone. The bald man stroking his stubble tells Jung not to worry about him, repeating that the child is still a new disciple. They must simply observe him to determine if he is a spy or just a talented kid. Suddenly, his expression changes at the thought that maybe Mu Jin comes from a family with a background in martial arts, catching Jung's attention. The first-class disciple agrees as he thinks about how Mu Jin already knew unknown training exercises and possessed skills that he might have inherited from his family. Sung boils Mu Jin's actions down to his attempt to prove that his respected father's training methods are better than the millennium-old Shaolin methods. All this conspiracy theorizing would probably make Mu Jin cry from laughter. The hall leader of education wonders about what to do about Mu Jin, now that he has become even more arrogant after defeating Mu Gong. As he reaches out for his tea, a man in black robes thinks of a solution to leave Mu Jin to the infamous Biyab Gong. This stuns the first-class disciple, who repeats whether his master is talking about the Biyab Gong in the discipline court. Sung reassures the man in yellow robes that Biyab Gong has volunteered to join the Arhat Hall. Hearing this, Jung is satisfied and agrees with the decision. Under the cover of a dark, cloudy night, the Shaolin Temple is dimly lit by a few lamps. 3 disciples, having completed their training, walk and chat among themselves as they exit the training grounds. Suddenly, the disciple at the front freezes, catching sight of someone who makes him abruptly turn and urges his friends to take a different path. Perplexed, one of his buddies asks why he's suddenly so unnerved. The shaken disciple and his companions cautiously peek back through the doorway, curious about what alarmed their friend. They inquire about the monk standing outside, only to discover it's Biyab Gong, nicknamed Mad Dog for his strict adherence to rules, holding a rigorous horse stance. The 3 get cold feet as they wonder why he is doing training out there instead of in the training hall, making one of them say, that it is quite obvious that the mad dog has the insane will to keep training, without bothering to rest. The three casually discuss binge-read, a disciplined, infamous monk training outside at night. One of them laughs aloud, and further makes fun of binge-read's nickname. His buddy clicks his tongue, and informs them that starting the next day, binge-read will be stationed in the Arhat Hall, which causes the previously laughing disciples' expression to turn horrified. They begin to grumble and voice their concerns about binge-read moving from the discipline court, wishing he had just stayed there. They dread the thought of having to train in the Arhat Hall under the strict oversight of the mad dog. Binge-read is notorious for his relentless correction of even the smallest mistakes by his junior disciples, enforcing Shaolin discipline with unwavering rigor that leaves them quaking in his presence. One of them mentions hearing that binge-read aims to familiarize himself with all halls and courts to deepen his understanding of Shaolin discipline, prompting the others to remark how fitting his nickname Rules Fanatic truly is. Despite his strictness, they agree that binge-read's dedication commands respect. Binge-read is seen extensively training according to the rules, as he believes you cannot follow them and not serve as a role model for others to follow. Similarly, he is seen spending more time practicing the basic exercises than everyone else. As Mu Jin has previously mentioned, so much training without rest has led to binge-read's knees being permanently damaged. Despite suffering from severe knee damage that makes even walking painful, instead that binge-read's indomitable will and spirit persist, he continues his rigorous physical and mental training unabated. Grimacing and clutching his knees, binge-read reflects that the pain endured during physical exercises also toughens his mind. The three disciples observe him with awe as he finally exhales after maintaining a demanding horse stance for 30 minutes. Sweat pours down his face as he mentions Mu Jin's name, anticipating the arrival of this new recruit. Binge-read, with his peak physical condition showcasing every defined muscle, envisions Mu Jin, the talented troublemaker of the Arhat Hall, as a mischievous figure with a devilish grin. As binge-read gazes up at the night sky, he resolves to instill the proper Shaolin mindset in the young Mu Jin. The following day, senior monks are taken aback to find binge-read standing solemnly in the Arhat Hall, hands clasped behind his back. They inquire about his presence. Binge-read announces his assignment to the Arhat Hall for the foreseeable future. Mu Yul is relieved he arrived on time, while Mu Jin turns to catch a glimpse of their new leader. The charismatic figure, exuding strength and military-like physique, cheerfully declares his eagerness to work with the disciples of the Arhat Hall, hand confidently on his hip. Mu Jin is mesmerized by the imposing presence and raw physicality of this new figure. Yet, his attention shifts to some second-class disciples nearby, who appear frowning and frustrated, as they whisper among themselves. Then, he glances over at the younger monks who seem unaware of the identity and reputation of their new authority figure. As he puts the pieces together, Mu Jin's intuition allows him to recognize what is happening. He recalls that he had heard of the famous disciplinary binge-read. The new boss announces that training starts in the morning, but Mu Jin brushes it off, as it is unrelated to him. Now the time for training has arrived, and the young monks are holding the horse stance. The wise disciplinarian decides that before he guides someone, he should know their problem, and just as one who knows himself and his enemy well, he does not lose. Binge-read walks by Mu Jin, thinking that he must first figure out why the young monk acts this way before he attempts to fix Mu Jin's problem. With his razor-sharp astute eyes, he analyzes that in Mu Jin's squats, he spreads his legs more than shoulder width, and that he faces forwards, while keeping his back straight and his buttocks bulging out. Binge-read imitates the young monk and squats with crossed arms, noticing how each time he moves down, he breathes in and breathes out when he moves back up. Due to an extensive injury to his knees, Binge notices that this is not much different from the horse stance, since the man still feels the pain in his knees, becoming angrier that this may just be a trick for Mu Jin to escape the difficulty of Shaolin training. As Binge is thinking that he should discipline the boy, Mu Jin points out that his form is wrong. The young boy stands up, facing directly at the stout monk in a squatted position, repeating that the man's posture is incorrect. Binge inquires what exactly he is doing incorrectly, making Mu Jin pause for a moment. An annoying thought passes through the former fitness master's head that he will have to guide this man through the basics step by step. Although Mu Jin does not know why the man is trying to copy him, the pop of his knees each time he squats is quite obvious, making it Mu Jin's inner fitness trainer's duty to do something about it and simply not ignore it. He then has an interesting realization that if Binge is the disciplinary master, Having the man on his side will serve as a great asset. Our protagonist has a villainous smile on his face as he concocts a plan to make his life in the Shaolin temples easy by winning over someone of high authority like Biob. Biob Gong repeats his question, causing Mu Jin to respond by saying that simply copying the young monk's movements would only worsen Biob's bad knees, catching the man's attention. Mu Jin then persuades Biob Gong to trust him and follow his guidance. Taking charge, Mu Jin instructs Biob Gong to perform a stretching lunge, praising the stout man's flexibility. He explains how these tendon extension techniques can help alleviate knee muscle tension, demonstrating their benefits through the kneeling posture. Mu Jin enthusiastically suggests the disciplinary master use this as a warm-up before actual exercises to reduce the pressure placed on his knees, forcing the man to admit that he feels a difference. Lost in his enthusiasm, Mu Jin goes on to explain to Biob Gong that he should repeat 3 sets after 30-second intervals, not realizing that the man has no knowledge of gym terms. The young fitness master quickly recovers from the confusion and moves on to the next step, where he grabs and massages Biob Gong's left knee for a moment and asks if it has improved the pain. The man groans as he feels pain even from a light massage, indicating to the fitness master that harsh training has done a number on the disciplinary master's knees. His continuous groaning in pain suddenly comes to a stop with a confused grunt that escapes from his mouth, with teeth tightly clenched from the pain. He realizes that previously his knees hurt, as if they were being beaten by someone, but now he feels unusually relieved and at peace. Immediately after tapping his knee, Mu Jin suggests with a glint of excitement in his eyes that this is only the 2nd time and they should start the next round again. Mu Jin instructs Biob Gong to rise immediately, giving the man no time to hesitate or rest. Despite his initial reluctance to repeat the exercise so soon, Biob Gong is motivated by Mu Jin's encouraging pat on the back, who asserts that training doesn't wait for anyone. Momentarily pausing, Biob Gong's sharp gaze meets the amused grin of the child, causing him to reflect on Mu Jin's unique qualities. Observing Mu Jin laughing and assisting the disciplinary master, the other monks are intrigued. He Jung in particular is amazed at Biob Gong's unexpected interaction with the troublemaker he was supposed to discipline. As the sky shifts to a vibrant orange during sunset, Mu Jin's voice directs Biob Gong, acting as his personal physical therapist, advising him on exercises to alleviate knee discomfort. Biob Gong, notorious for his strict adherence to rules and feared as the mad dog of the discipline court, is now surprising the many second-class disciples he previously terrorized by showing kindness and camaraderie towards the peculiar young monk recruit. Together, the disciplinary master and Mu Jin are enthusiastically following Mu Jin's well-devised training regimen on the grounds. During their session, Mu Jin queries Biob Gong about his previous posture, prompting the man to admit it was incorrect based on what he's recently learned. Mu Jin attributes Biob Gong's knee issues to his narrow squat technique. Instead, he teaches Biob Gong the proper form of a mini squat, which the disciplined man quickly grasps. As they conclude their training, Mu Jin maintains his enthusiastic smile, explaining to Biob Gong how to execute the exercise plan effectively. He advises the disciplinary master to begin with a slight knee bend, then to lower into a seated position using his thighs and buttocks without straining his knees. And finally, he explains to use the buttocks and thighs again to push his body back up. As his new client performs the exercises properly, Mu Jin compliments him and asks about how he feels, to which he responds that he feels fantastic. Finally, Mu Jin tells him to rest for a moment, giving Biob Gong room to think about how his knees feel less pain than before. Soon after, Mu Jin again brings up 3 fingers and tells Biob Gong that they should move on to exercises for his calves, while patting himself on the back for being a pro personal trainer in his mind. He recalls from his past life that when extremely serious soldier-like clients came, he found out that they are quite amicable to persons with an extremely friendly demeanor. Using this theory, Mu Jin compliments the disciplinary master for correcting his posture very easily, making the man boast pridefully that it is a given considering he has been in the Shaolin Temple for 18 years. The 2 second-class disciples standing in front of He Jung discuss whether the mad dog really did go crazy because of them calling him that. Maintaining a stoic demeanor, He Jung seethes inwardly as his plan appears to have failed. He resorts to calming himself with prayer beads, trying to lower his rising blood pressure caused by anger. The monk in yellow, battling a severe headache from his rage, decides to leave the 2 disciples alone. The following day, training resumes under another serene blue sky at the Shaolin Temple's grounds. All the monks decide to go have breakfast and congratulate each other on another training session well done, but Mu Jin and Binge-read stay behind. The little boy reminds the disciplinary master with a serious face that it is best for him to do the lower body exercises he has learned before the actual training session. The astute disciplinary master, attentively listening, however, is not simply following Mu Jin's instructions like a puppet despite appearing so. He is attempting to understand Mu Jin by personally trying out the boy's training methods as he had decided upon first meeting the boy, who is now giving him top-tier coaching, stretching lessons, and even massages. As the menacing-looking muscular man looks down at the boy, he is in awe at how good the techniques of Mu Jin are. The burly man recalls how by using the stretches or tension extension techniques, as well as the techniques to reduce pressure on his knees, he barely feels much pain at all. He shouldn't even be training to the point of pain and suffering to begin with. With an unexpectedly cheerful smile, Binge-read asks Mu Jin if he learned these techniques from his family, which puzzles the boy. The sturdy man then remarks that Mu Jin must come from an honorable family, given his impressive knowledge of techniques, a sentiment he heard from his senior monks. Mu Jin's smile turns mischievous upon realizing the seniors have developed this theory to explain his behavior. He reflects on the unprecedented things he's accomplished since arriving at the temple, recognizing that while he can't explain everything, this theory could prove useful in dispelling any suspicions about him. With a confident face, the boy proudly affirms the theory he was taught by his family, making the disciplinary master commend the magnificent techniques with a laugh. However, Binge-read's face suddenly turns serious, and he reveals to Mu Jin that his praise is only for the treatment of his knees. With the dignified aura of a guru, Binge-read advises Mu Jin to focus on the fact that the Shaolin martial arts with a history of 1,000 years are undoubtedly superior, even though the boy has a deep respect for the training he has learned from his family. He tells Mu Jin to also focus on improving his Shaolin training, surprising our protagonist. Mu Jin brings his hands together as a sign of respect and agrees with the disciplinary master, and is interrupted by his friend, Mu Yul, who inquires when they'll be finished. Mu Jin politely seeks permission from Binge-read to leave, to which the stout disciplinary master nods. Mu Yul shyly expresses his desire to eat together with Mu Jin, and the two happily head towards the food hall. Suddenly, a loud clearing of the throat startles the cheerful Binge-read, causing him to shiver, as he senses the presence of an enraged monk with a terrifying aura standing right behind him. Reacting swiftly, Binge-read steps forward and apologizes for his unprofessional behavior in front of the monk in yellow robes, who stands with his hands tightly bound behind his back. Disappointed, Hae-jung remarks that at least Binge-read is self-aware. Binge-read explains that he's attempting to understand Mu Jin by adopting the boy's methods himself, prompting Hae-jung to ask for his opinion. As he observes Mu Jin laughing and walking with his friend, Hae-jung begins to ponder thoughtfully. After a moment of rumination, Binge-read suggests that Mu Jin probably comes not from a martial arts family, but rather from a family of doctors. Hae-jung is surprised and asks the brawny monk to give his reason for thinking so. The stout man puts a finger on his face as he is in deep thought, and tells Hae-jung that he would like to tell something to the first-class disciple first. Binge-read reveals to Hae-jung that his knees are in terrible condition from years of rigorous training, which surprises the monk. Hae-jung asks why Binge-read had never mentioned it before. With a sense of dignity, Binge-read explains that he didn't want to burden his seniors with worry or reveal any weakness to the juniors, whom he aimed to inspire as a role model. Reflecting on his past, Binge-read recalls how his fellow monks had never noticed the extent of his knee damage the whole time they spent together. However, he credits Mu Jin for being a very observant young boy and for immediately noticing and understanding his condition. Before Hae-jung can ask another question, Binge-read quickly replies that Mu Jin has also taught him new techniques that are gentle on his knees. Hae-jung slaps his own face, at a loss for what he should do, since such a talented child may end up dismantling the Shaolin training methods with his superior techniques. As they stand alone under the sun in the empty training grounds, the disciplinary master reassures Hae-jung that he will make sure to guide Mu Jin onto the right path, making the monk in yellow wonder how Binge-read plans to achieve that. With a hearty laugh, Binge-read places his fist against his robust chest muscles and explains that children tend to listen more to adults they connect with well, rather than imposing rules forcefully. He plans to slowly but gradually impart Shaolin's training methods to the young monk. Hae-jung considers this approach, stroking his chin thoughtfully, and decides that Binge-read's method of taking it slow is worth trying. Thus, their conversation concludes with Hae-jung placing his trust in the man. formerly known as the Mad Dog of the Shaolin Temple. A few hours later, during afternoon training, Mu Jin wears a deep frown, struggling with the schedule of boring Buddhist lessons immediately after breakfast. Mu Yul notices his friend's discomfort, placing a reassuring hand on Mu Jin's shoulder and humorously remarking on his slightly purpling face. Mu Jin reflects on feeling an intense food coma, perhaps due to his youthful metabolism. First-class disciple Haejung announces that as all the disciples have perfected the chain punch, they will now move on to the next martial art. He emphasizes the important principle that one can only bring out their full power if one harnesses both internal and external energies. Therefore, the young monks will now train to master their internal energy. Haejung commands 2 second-class disciples to demonstrate this new training method, instructing the young monks to assume the lotus position, which they have previously learned. Standing next to Mu Yul, Mu Jin watches confidently, although he is unfamiliar with the lotus position. He observes the second-class disciples gracefully kneel and sit cross-legged, noting their posture for future reference. Thus, as the 2 second-class disciples close their eyes and bring their hands together, Haejung stands tall with authority between them, telling everyone to focus on their breathing with their eyes closed. The senior monks demonstrate what Haejung is explaining, inhaling deeply through the noise and letting it pass deeper down the throat till it reaches the body's energy core. This makes Mu Jin burst with excitement, thinking that now he is finally going to learn the martial arts he has only seen in dreams and novels come to life. Haejung commands the young monks this time to take position, and Mu Jin follows the orders gladly, as he was looking forward to learning some real martial arts, instead of the usual boring training. However, Mu Jin is not the only young monk full of excitement. All of them are looking at each other with shining faces, as they are finally going to learn something awesome after all the tedious training sessions. This will act as motivation for them to train even more. They are finally beginning the journey to learn the 1,000-year-old Shaolin martial arts, dreaming of being able to destroy boulders like Monk Haejung one day. So the young monks continue to breathe as Haejung instructs them when Mu Jin suddenly feels weird. As he breathes more and more, he notices that something is strange about the training.